It is necessary for the recording of sound to convert the sound waves to corresponding changes in light. The sound waves produced by my voice are transmitted through the air to the microphone, where these sound waves are converted to changes in an electric current. These variations in the electric current are then amplified and used to control the light. This varying beam of light falling on the photoelectric cell produces variations in the electric current, which are directly proportional to the variations in the light beam. The sound track. As the varying electrical current in the photoelectric cell is small, a vacuum tube amplifier is required to increase it to the point where it will operate a loudspeaker. Sound track.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, we will be covering something that's actually very interesting to me because of how it basically does lead back to things that me and Lux actually were bringing up a lot in our first year of the Occult Rejects. You might see some interesting names being brought back up again. But as you can tell in the title, we are covering Robert Maxwell's medical monopoly. And tell you the truth, this was actually a really kind of like eye-opening topic for me in many ways, because this actually wasn't my idea. This was actually Lisa's idea. It was something that she thought was actually really important and kicked the topic to me, and I was looking at it. I was like, oh, I didn't know all this. And then when I even started looking into these other things, I was like, this guy, like basically between him and Nazis, like they sculptured the medical world that we're in today.
Right.
I was like, this is actually wild to me. You know, plus, again, you know, seeing the usual suspects that we used to see back in the day, CT Corp, you know, Corporation Company and USA Corp start popping up again under their registered agents. It starts to seem very interesting. And for people who don't know what those companies or those registered agents are, I guess just watch the series and we'll get to it. But I will definitely show how I've come across them before in the past as well. So, but I guess since, you know, this is Lisa's topic, you can go ahead and, like, you know, maybe start it off or let everybody know, like, what's your plan here?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
You know, why you even picked it? Why did you even pick it?
Well, and I'll give you a little bit of backstory. So, basically, one night I was scrolling through Twitter and I came across this article and I started reading it, and it's a 2017 article published by The Guardian, and it had to do with scientific publishing. So I went ahead and started reading it, and I was completely floored. I think I've mentioned to you that I've spent some time in science and academia, but I had never even heard of this connection. So you know, you have the dissenting voices on one side of the scientists saying, oh, the scientific publishing industry is just, you know, exploitative. And then you hear about Robert Maxwell, you know, he's a horrible person. But I had never heard the two in the same sentence. So, like, I want to kind of set up the stage, kind of giving a little bit of information on the scientific publishing industry, not too long, but just very briefly. But I think that it's very important to kind of set that stage, because this topic, I think, is very important, and quite frankly, it's like not discussed at all. I've never heard of it. I never even heard of a connection between the two, and I had no idea how influential Robert Maxwell was on the current model of scientific journal or publishing journals, and how they operate and the business model that they use. So hopefully you'll see why I think it's a big deal. So just a little bit of background to kind of set the stage. Like I mentioned, there is in academia and scientific publishing is going to be the lifeline of every scientist. There is a common saying that's called publish or perish, and it's a phrase that's heard often, and you hear it being used often, and it's used to describe the enormous amount of pressure that is placed on scientists to publish and publish often. So their career, their funding, their promotion, overall professional success depends on if they publish and the frequency of publishing. So this is kind of the only way that scientists can stand out amongst others and basically demonstrate like their talent, or how well they set up an experiment and can put data out there. So if they can publish often, it reinforces like a positive feedback.
Well, I was going to say that too. I was going to say, just from some things that I've watched recently, I feel like, you also have like a lot of other people who will like mention like, because of this person's work. Mm-hmm. Like it just does seem like it kind of like, I sometimes wonder, like, are they pumping all this out because they're like, oh, I have something I want to share anyway with other scientists or other people. Right. Even if it's just like a small little thing that they're putting out 2 weeks later or a month or two later. Yep. Sometimes I do think it's just to like kind of like, again, I guess what I was getting at is that like a lot of times recently I'll hear people that having some important stuff I think to say that are referencing back to other works from even other people that they're expanding on, or that I'm taking that theory and that model and I'm running with this and that's how I'm getting this.
Well, it's a way to communicate with each other. Yeah. And it's also, you're showing, oh, I'm interested in your work and you influenced me, or hey, I did this experiment and you were completely wrong. And it's a way to kind of bridge the gap or communicate across lines. But then also in terms like what you said, there's all the other angle that, you want to put something out because of the pressure to publish.
Oh, yeah, so, of course. Especially if you're being paid to perform.
Oh, absolutely. And so the whole thing about publishing, you look good, but your institution also looks good. And it kind of brings notoriety to the institution itself. And the way that you're rewarded is that you get more money to basically continue the project that you're publishing in. And so sadly, if you're not really interested in your topic, but that's what's getting published, you're kind of married to putting out data, kind of like content creators, to publish, because it's not going to get published any other way, and you want to keep your job. So like if you have professors, for instance, that love teaching or mentoring, that doesn't give you any publications. So if you publish less because you devote more time to teaching, you're going to kind of find yourself out of a situation where you're no longer teaching and mentoring. So publishing is like your lifeline. But because of this whole publish or perish, this whole model behind it all has shown that the publishing, the model for publishing within the scientific industry has not so very good consequences, or it has consequences rather. For the industry itself, for the scientific publishing industry itself, it's amazing. It's great, because the more pressure you put on scientists to put out stuff, the more papers are going to push and the more journals they're going to have to create. So it's just like a money-making, churning out, and they're just basically, making money off of these journals, and I'll tell you why in a second. But for science itself, and by default the scientists, it's led to, and I think you were kind of getting on this tangent, is that it's led to potentially wasteful research that's not even going to benefit society, but it's fresh, it's new, and it's being published. So that everybody starts to gravitate towards that. There's also like a bias that is created towards just doing the research that's publishable. So the research may be done, but it has no real application into society itself. There's another
that's funny.
thing.
I was watching, that debate that I had sent you. One of the guys up on the stage, I think, was into it, and like the bald guy was like, I think the dude's batshit crazy. He actually said that about this person. But I think they were saying that there were some interesting things about it, but the whole thing is it's actually not applicable to anything. So he was like saying it's almost like a waste of time.
Yeah. Well,
like it doesn't really help anything, because we would have to change everything to this. And he's like, I don't see this having enough merit to even think about doing that. He said, not that I'm against changing the whole way we look at science. He says it's just we better have some damn good reasons why.
Yes. No, absolutely. And not only that, but I think, and on to that point, is that there are certain things that are only going to get published, and I keep saying that. But say, for instance, you run an experiment and you find that none of the variables are correlated, or your data shows no significant data. That is still important, because if you don't publish that, then you're going to have laboratories around the world doing the same experiment, coming to the same dead end, and that's waste of money, that's waste of time, and that's waste of so many things, when you could have just published it and said, no, I didn't see any correlation, and people can move on. If anything, it eliminates, hey, this didn't work. But journals don't publish no data. I think that's the whole point in that whole end. But the other thing is, like, say that you have an experiment, you churned out data, and here it is, it's published. Because everybody is trying to publish something fresh and new and get published, the likelihood of somebody repeating the experiment to see if someone in Arizona got the data, whatever, now someone in Switzerland's going to repeat it and see if they get the same data. The reason that that's important is because you set up a hypothesis and you say, this is what I think happened. Somebody else has to be able to reproduce that scenario in order for that hypothesis to now evolve into a theory. If no one replicates that hypothesis, it stays like that. It never moves on in the progression of theory to law to whatever. But because everybody's trying to publish, nobody's wasting time repeating experiments, because if it's a repeat of experiment, journals themselves will probably not publish it. So now you're starting to see how it's all starting to bias itself, and that scientists are basically motivated to only publish as a survival mechanism to keep their job. So you have all of that, right? And you have scientists that are saying, hey, this model doesn't work. This model is actually detrimental to science. The whole publish and perish is threatening the quality of science. That, you have smaller universities that aren't as fluent with their laboratory techniques or technology or equipment or whatever, and they cannot compete with, like, say, Harvard, where they're getting all the journal publications, whereas these smaller ones are not, because they don't have the equipment, and they, you have that biasing or whatever. And then also the politics. So everything is kind of like in this mismatch area, and it's all kind of in this biased sense. And if you don't tap into what they call a magical formula on how to get published, you're kind of out of a situation for publishing. And this was all kind of geared during this whole publish or perish motto or whatever. And so even all of that, all of the dissenting voices saying all this and saying it's biased, saying that science isn't growing, no one that I have seen, or at least genuinely address who was responsible for the paradigm shift in scientific publication and the model they use it today. So they'll say, oh, well, it started here, or so-and-so was the one that kind of influenced it all or whatever, but they don't really go into in depth as to who it was, why it was, and how come it's like that now, or even his basic, affiliations with what's going on in the news right now. So just quickly, in science, it started off with oral history. They basically would get together, discuss, do a discourse, and share ideas, share their experiments, and that was it. You had other places that were handwriting their manuscripts, their findings, their discoveries, their experimental designs, and that was another section. If you're handwriting your manuscript, I doubt you're going to churn out 100 of them to disseminate to all these people. So that was also limited. But with the, or what they call the post-print paradigm, what really kicked it off was actually the printing press in the late 19th century, to where you could actually get, information onto whatever and then disseminate. So that's kind of the progression of like oral history in through going into the journal sense or journal publications. So what really, I think, kind of kicked it off, what was going on in Europe, and we'll discuss it here in a bit, also was kind of happening in the US. And I think it's important to identify what was happening in the US, because it kind of served as an influence on why everybody started to invest in what was going on in Europe, and what we're going to discuss here in a bit. But so during World War II, they needed scientists to basically invent things and to assist, the war and help the Allied win the war. So what ended up happening is that scientific research and academia started to be based upon two principles of self-governance. You needed autonomy in that scientists needed to be free to pursue whatever topic they wanted to do. You can't ultimately force someone to do it, otherwise you've compromised the entire experiment or the science. And then you also had to have internal accountability. Not only are you yourself doing the science, but you had to have somebody qualified that could look at what you're doing and say, yes, it's good, no, it's not. And that they felt that the government should fund the science because that data was going to be used for the public as a whole. And they didn't want the private sector to fund it because you can't expect the private sector to fund all kinds of research, and also it would bias it, which we see now in terms of, biased research.
Yes.
So during World War II, you had Vannevar Bush from MIT that basically was in charge of the U.S. Office of Scientific Research and Development, and he goes on later to be the director of the Manhattan Project. But he's famous for kind of setting the groundwork in telling the governments, hey, you need to fund scientists so that they can turn out, data, and that in order to do this, the continuous flow and substantial flow of scientific knowledge will be there for our country. And they have to be able to choose whatever they want to do. Otherwise, you compromise the science, and that all that data would benefit society, hence why the government themselves would fund the research. And when I say the government, I mean federal or state, right? So you had scientists that were doing this stuff, but you still needed to judge how their work was benefiting society and if it was of quality work. And the only way to do this, what they felt at the time, was through scientific publication. So that's how we start to see how publications circle back into how it plays into experiments and the lifeline of scientists in general. And so the way that they could, judge each other is that if other scientists were peer reviewing the publication, right? You write it up, you give it to another scientist. Yes, it sounds good. It's sound or whatever. But what happened with this whole thing is that by default, for all intents and purposes, and the whole process of publication and the publication industry is now going to become the significant but invisible influence over science and science policy. So the publication companies are now in a position to where they can say, no, we're not going to publish your work, or yes, we are. If you play politics or if you don't play politics. If this is hot right now, this virus is hot right now in this year, we only publish this, and they are in that position. And a majority of those publication companies are not even scientists themselves. They're businessmen. And so they want to see, they want to have that profit margin. So one of the things that ended up, I guess, coming out of this is that the publication industry would, and as we see now, does own science. They dictate it all. They shape all of it. They shape the publisher perish motto for sure. And what that's contributed to is an oligopoly of the publication industry. So you're seeing now how you have these scientists, but they're all kind of being funneled into this way of thinking, way of thought in order to keep their job. And it's by design, through a business model. So the business model, really quickly, is that imagine that you receive raw materials from your customer for free. The customers themselves carry out the quality control of the materials for free. And then the customers buy back the final product at an extremely elevated price that just keeps rising, and there is no cap. That is essentially the scientific publishing industry in a nutshell. So you're not paying your scientists, your writers, and you're definitely not paying your editors. And then you're selling it mainly to libraries at a price that keeps increasing every year. And there's no cap because the libraries aren't going to tell you no, because their scientists need the journals in order to continue conducting research. So it's a for-profit oligopoly that functions within a government-funded, largely regulated organization. So it kind of, it's one of those things to where you kind of just, how do I say this?
It's a really screwed up situation.
It is. I think it is. And you hear about this, in academia, in school or whatever, how it's predatory, how it's exploitative, but no one really says or does anything. I think they're trying to go the whole, well, it should be open access. And there's a lot of push for that. And of course, there's a lot of pushback for that. But no one's getting really paid, so to speak. The only payment that comes to the scientist is getting the job at the university, which is a set pay. It's not, the more articles you push out, the more commission you get. There's none of that.
You know what this actually very much reminds me of? And I'm just going off of something that you even said before real quick. And, you know, I hate to sound like an ass, but it really does sound like the same thing, and I've made jokes about it. It's pretty much the same thing as a person who considers them a content creator but only has guests on and receives money. Because you're not paying your guests.
Who did the research?
Your guests.
Your guests who did the research.
But they didn't get paid, did they?
No.
That's very fucking weird.
So it's like an oligopoly. It's where all of this side is free, but you're making money off of nothing, really. I mean, essentially,
I turned
you're
on
not.
my mixer and flapped my mouth. And I should
Exactly.
stay home now.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying that. It's just, but you know, to get off the joke, like, and everything, that really is like a really screwed up situation.
No, it is, and so when you say science is
they're like
biased,
being pimped out.
Yeah, but this is one avenue how you can completely prove how biased science is. Not in my giving the benefit of the doubt, not so much that the scientist him or herself is biasing it on purpose, but is biasing it so that they can keep their job, or they can continue funding, or they can continue doing research, or what have you. So it essentially it's a bias, and you can prove it because of this business model. But they're basically providing a free labor force for a job that requires them and only them to do the quality check, and none of them get paid for it. Which is, yeah, I thought that was pretty. So with all that, I kind of wanted to throw some numbers at y'all in terms of profit margins.
Oh. So
corporate publishers exist as only a large handful. So there's only like maybe 3 to 5 top dogs in all of the scientific industry. They own almost all the journals.
Oh, I think I even came across something that called it like the big 3 or the big something. Yeah, it even like clumped like a group of publishing companies as being like the big something. Yeah, I read that.
No, exactly. And we're going to talk about, I think, one of them later on, especially in the who owns what and who contributes what. But so most of the coveted journals, so that was another thing. Journals are not all the same. They all have levels, and they're called impact factors. And so if you get your paper put into a journal that has the highest impact factor, you pretty much can, like, you know, dictate where you're going to go, because it made it to that top tier. So they themselves have also initiated like a hierarchy as well that you were trying to constantly chase. And they
sounds
own
like podcasting again.
It's true. So
sorry,
just
it was your fault. You brought it up first.
So just this one company, LC.
I gotta get that one guest. I gotta get so and so to retweet me and have me on.
Exactly. But so say we're going to talk about one of the publishing companies, which is Elsevier, and now it's been renamed to Relics Group or something like that. So this one in particular, these are stats for 2020. Yeah, for 2020. They received 1.8 million article submissions to their 2,500 journals that they own.
Yeah, when everybody was dying, these motherfuckers seemed to be doing okay, and they were working hard as hell, huh?
No one stopped them.
What the fuck?
Exactly. They have 20,000 editors, and these editors feel honored to be asked to be a peer reviewer. No money given. They disseminate close to 20% of the world's science articles, and they reap in $3.3 billion in revenue, where subscriptions, which libraries pay, university libraries pay, so it's government funded, constitute 74% of the revenue. As of 2020, 46,736 academic journals were publishing worldwide. In the last 10 years, the number of journals has grown close to 30%. So Elsevier, this one, you see it's at the top, basically, in terms of revenue. It It has annual revenues exceeding $6 billion. I believe it's in British pound. Total revenue is more than 19 billion British pounds. And mind you, it's a narrow audience. Not everybody's picking this up off the stand. It's just catered to scientists, and that's it. Scientists don't make the majority of the population on Earth, but yet they're banking. The amount of revenue that they garner falls in between industries such as the film and recording industry. They rank at that level. And in 2010, they had a 36% margin that outpaced it was higher and outpaced Google, Apple, and Amazon that year. And yet, no one's talking about it, which is weird to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, I like how you added that up in the corner. I was looking at that when it first came on, and I was like, "Holy crap!"
Mm-hmm.
Like they really killed it then, huh?
Yeah, and it's still going, and it's still going. I mean, if anything, more journals have been created because of what happened in 2020.
Mm.
So overall,
one thing I was just thinking real quick, I wanted to say. I mean, this is totally out there, and it's like a far out there idea, but like. Maybe just because of like being an Italian from New York and Long Island, whenever somebody seems to be making too much money on something they aren't probably supposed to, you question, is there money laundering or are you actually selling something else? So, I mean, like, could this even just be like numbers? like what I'm getting at is like, what you're saying, like, how are you even making this much money with such a small audience?
Exactly.
So where's that money coming from?
Well, it's mainly from libraries, from universities.
I mean, what is it, like $10,000 a fucking book? I mean, you know what I'm getting at? Like, how do we know this isn't like fucking just running drugs? Like,
and it's subscription.
I don't know. It just seems really weird. That's a lot of money.
And I believe it works like cable subscriptions in that here's the package. I know you don't want to see 900 channels. You just really want to see 30. But it's cheaper if you get this package with the 900 channels, even though you're never going to see them. I think that's how it works with the libraries, in that these publishing companies will push the subscription for them to take on this entire, package deal, even though no one is asking for that. And then the other thing is that, say the libraries themselves say, oh, well, we're only going to do it for 1 year. Then the publishing company says, well, you don't get access to the previous issues, even though you may have paid last year for the subscription.
Gotcha.
So they kind of like punish the libraries for not having a renewal rate or a renewal on it and not getting the full package deal. And they can, because who else is doing it? There's only 3 or 4 of them, or 5.
Oh, that's another thing too. Yeah, there's very little.
They pretty much dictate it all.
Yeah.
So that, to me, I thought in and of itself was significant to kind of establish, because once we get into who made that model, it's alarming, I think. So, but yeah, that was in terms of Elsevier. And I think you had looked at Elsevier, right, in terms of gematria.
Yes, I have. I did find some interesting things that I'll read off. I really, when it came to the numbers for the word itself, I didn't really notice anything too alarming in the numbers. Like, that just seemed like a number that pops up. But I'm going to read them off anyway. You have 914 for Hebrew, 570 for English, and then 95 for simple. The Hebrew gematria I thought was interesting, does match weed, Las Vegas, the apocalypse encoded, lying spirits, Democrat Party, family cursed king, and then like when I went over to the English in simple, you did get it's time, Sirius, Halloween, Scorpio, Kundalini, Son of God, pineal gland, Neptune, Pentagram, Mandala Effect, Nintendo, Einstein, Nightmare, The Tool, Empress. I thought that was kind of interesting. And the Queen, Peter Pan, and the Elohim. And I think if I forgot to say it, if I already did say it, Mandala Effect. Toss that into.
Those are interesting.
Yeah. Just, I mean, there are things that we have gotten before covering something else. I just can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which would then make me wonder if there is significance to those numbers, but it's just not popping out in my head. You know, for like the value of
Right.
however you say that company.
Elsevier, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because some of the stuff that you've mentioned, you wonder, you know, how much of it was whenever they renamed this company, how much of that played into effect, you know.
I mean, everything just looking at their logo. I mean, that could be
exactly.
You know, it's a little kind of looks like art that we've shown recently, and just put it that way. I
think, yeah, I definitely think that there's something much more to that than just the logo itself. So cue in Robert Maxwell, and I'll make the connection here a bit. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on him and kind of, you know, move you in through the timeline as to how he comes into play with all this. So Robert Maxwell was born Jan Ludwig Hyman Benjamin Hock on June 10th of 1923 in Solotvino, Czechoslovakia, which today is Ukraine. He was born to a poor Yiddish-speaking Orthodox Jewish family, most of which were said to have died in Auschwitz. It is stated that he joined the Czech resistance and escaped to France, and in May 1940 changed his name to Leslie du Maurier.
Oh.
That's how you say it. And then fought in the British Army in World War II. To me, I was like, why are you changing your name? Like, I don't know why. Then, when he promoted to lieutenant, he was stationed near Brussels. And he changed his name again.
See, like, stuff like that, I would wonder if that's because of spy work.
I think so. I definitely think so. Which we'll see that he was. He changed his name to Ian Robert Maxwell. He was captured by a machine gun post near Paolo on January 29th in 1945, and he was awarded the Military Cross and won British citizenship. Sometimes I wonder if people do this on purpose to get an easy citizenship. Like, they can't get it anywhere else, so I'm going to go into the military, pay my dues, accidentally get shot, and they give me a green card. 2 months later, he marries Elizabeth Menard, which was a French Protestant, on March 14th, 1945. They had 4 sons and 5 daughters. After the war, Maxwell went into the business of selling scientific publications until 1949. And then we'll talk about how he founded Pergamon Press in 59, and then he also stood for Parliament as a Labor candidate for Buckingham. I think he won in 64 and 66 or whatever, but we'll go into that either on the next episode or later on. I want to mention this incident real quick, and then we're going to kind of come back on the timeline. So in 1971, he receives a nickname, the Bouncing Check, which I think is a good play on words. I don't know why, but I think
that kind of happened on the end, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just got it right now.
I mean,
sorry, it's not funny. It's kind of funny.
It is.
After there was a scandal with an American entrepreneur, Saul Steinberg, out of Lasco Data Processing Corporation, when he wanted to purchase a subsidiary of Pergamon that sold encyclopedias. Maxwell had purposefully inflated the price of the share, making it appear more profitable by using transactions between Pergamon and his own private family business. Well, when Steinberg discovers the con, he withdrew his offer, sparking an investigation from the Department of Trade in Britain, to which was declared that Maxwell was not to be relied upon to exercise proper stewardship of a publicly quoted company. Well, the director of public prosecutions declined to press charges against Maxwell, and he recovered well from the scandal, and therefore his nickname was born, the Bouncing Check. So he had that to his name. So kind of going backwards a little bit, I wanted to, when you talked about his time during the war and then changing his name, yes. So to kind of give you a little bit of history, there were some top British scientists who were kind of complaining about the publication process in Britain. You had Fleming, who was the guy who came up with a vaccine. Vaccine. And then you had Charles Darwin's grandson, Charles G. Darwin, who was a physicist, that basically they're putting out top tier British science, yet they can't showcase it because it's not being published fast enough, or it's not being published at all, or just basically the publishing sector was lacking in Britain. So what was known at the time was that scientific publishers were known for being broke and inefficient. It just wasn't happening, and the journals were being cheaply made, and everything was backlogged, and they relied on cash handouts to even do the process itself. So the way that the Britain government solved this was to pair Butterworth's, which is now owned by Elsevier, with the German publisher Springer, because Springer was good at this and had been doing it for a while. So Butterworth would learn to turn a profit and get its science out faster by acquiring Springer. What's interesting is that Robert Maxwell was currently working for Springer. So if he was a Jew, how was he working for a German company? I don't know. I don't know how that works, but it just seems odd as well. So Robert Maxwell, having served as an intelligence officer in Berlin after the war, Maxwell had established his own business helping Springer, the German publisher, ship scientific articles to Britain. British publishing house Butterworth directors, who were also ex-British intelligence, hired Maxwell to help manage the company. So all this is like an op to me, right? It's all intelligence based. It's all intelligence backed, I think. Right? And these are the people that are putting out scientific journals?
Even like when we get into other people that he was just associated with, just
right.
Something ain't right, I don't think.
And again, I'm reading this article, I'm like, how have I never heard of this? And how are people not in the streets, like, saying this is not right or whatever?
Because they're too worried about a fucking list that's never going to end up in an arrest anyway.
Right.
I mean, that's like even another thing. I hate to get off of it because of Epstein. But I was like saying it to my brother last night. I was like, yo, how come like nobody's asking about his eugenics shit? We're so stuck on this list that nobody's ever going to get arrested for. Like, what's up with the eugenics Epstein was into? Can we find out about that instead of just whatever triggered shit to post around online?
Well, and I wonder, because then we'll find out later, that Robert Maxwell started schmoozing all of these scientists in order to get them on his journals. So I wonder if Epstein positioned himself with Ghislaine because of this. Because he was in good with the top tier scientists. What better way, right? I think.
Yeah.
So this all happened whenever Robert Maxwell becomes managing director of the company. It's at the time when Vannevar Bush is basically saying, oh no, the government should fund scientists and we should allow them to explore whatever, and we need to increase publication and disseminate all the scientific knowledge on people. And so science was right about to go into that boom, like huge boom. And Maxwell was sitting right on it and about to basically be in a perfect position to reap the benefits of all that. So, yeah.
Did you want me to go into...
I think
Yeah, I think that I'm next for that. I do have... I'm going to try to see if maybe I could actually pull up the other one right now as we're recording. There was an issue where it did seem like I neither saw this name as Butterworth or Buttersworth. So there was a little bit of confusion. At one point, I think I did go somewhere, and it is actually without an S. But so right now, like the notes that I have, this is Butterworth Springer, and that is 1996 for Hebrew, 1656 for English, and 276 in simple. And then Butterworth itself is 1625, 1070, and 170. Some of the matches that I did get with Jewish Gematria was Austin Powers, The Key of Knowledge, 17-0. So that was weird. Twin Flames Reunion, Project Quantum Leap, Lift Up Your Eyes. I thought that was interesting to put in there because of the eye symbolism. Gateway to God. English and Simple, World War III, The Shape of Water. Russell Crowe, I thought that was interesting. Cyrus the Great, Divine Bloodlines, January 6th, Robert Wilson, and Born Antichrist, and Lord of the Rings. Then Springer by itself, I have 371, 636, and 106. And some of the things I did get for the the Jewish was Raptor, Stanford, Ottoman, Tifereth, Cincinnati, Ohio, Sociopath, April 3rd, Madam X. And then for English and Simple, I got Metatron, Divine Plan, which I found was interesting that, like, I know I've mentioned before, like, a lot of 8s, you know, seem weird. And, like, even with Hitler, you had, like, the HH. Now, Divine Plan is matching the Simple in English with the 636 and the 106, but its Hebrew is 888. So you have 3 8s there, and Heil Hitler does also match the English and Simple for Butterworth. So Butterworth and Heil Hitler both match. And I just thought it was interesting how, like, even whatever that word I just said, I just lost myself. That had the 888. I just found that interesting. And
it's German.
The Divine Plan. Instead of, like, 88 that you had to represent him, Divine Plan is 888. Yeah. It's just weird.
Right.
Just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even Divine Plan is even still matching the Heil Hitler with Butterworth, you know, with English and Simple Gematria.
And I wonder if they
636 and 106, that matches all of them.
And I think we'll see later on, especially in the next episode, how all of this, it's not a coincidence that they're picking these names, because they're matching the Gematria. Exactly.
It also matches Diamond Hands, which I find interesting, Fox News, Rose Garden, Monolith, Nefertiti, Muslims, Nuclear Bomb, OnlyFans, Destroy, Michael J. Fox, Calculator, Snuff Film, Columbus, Middle Finger, Mike Lindell, The Crown, and Saint Germain. I'm done.
You know, and when you said Fox News, Robert Maxwell was constantly being compared to Rupert Murdoch, who owned Fox News.
And then you have the Murdoch family ends up getting his boat that we'll cover at some point.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the thing with Robert
Maxwell, what's
Maxwell,
actually, sorry to interrupt you. I meant to tell you, because we're working on this already. Within the last few days, I'm pretty sure Fox News actually compared Maxwell to Murdoch.
Yes.
And I was like, that's so funny, because Fox News even pops up. Like,
yeah. No, and I will say this, Rupert Murdoch that's a whole other dive.
Yeah, that would be a whole other topic in itself.
That's that multi series on that one. But every time you look up Robert Maxwell, almost every single article has the name Rupert Murdoch in it as a comparison to Robert Maxwell. And so I don't know if Rupert Murdoch obviously was the U.S., you know, kind of Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell was British. Rupert Murdoch, well, he was Australian, but he was the U.S. answer, I think, to Britain's Robert Maxwell. That's what I think. And they constantly, you know, were competing against each other. So it's interesting that would come out as well. So Robert Maxwell, in terms of the business model for the scientific publication, has been quoted as there was no one more transformative than Robert Maxwell, who turned scientific journals into spectacular money-making machine that bankrolled his rise in British society, and a notorious figure in Britain at that. However, few people in the last century have done more to shape the way science is conducted today than Maxwell. And the fact that he receives that quote, to me, speaks of his influence, but as well as that the paradigm has yet to be challenged. Even at that, you would think that somebody at some point would have brought this up, challenged it, and turned it over, especially with everything coming out with the news and all that other stuff. So, yeah, it again, reading that article, I was kind of floored at it altogether. So, Maxwell goes on, becomes the company manager, and then in 1951, Butterworth decides to abandon that project of merging with Springer, or even the Springer conglomerate merger, whatever. And so Maxwell offers 13,000 pounds, 13,000 pounds for Butterworth's and Springer's shares. And it would be enough to give him control of the company. It happens, and he hires on Paul Rosebaum, who, as he was the previous science director on the other project, who Paul, you'll talk about here in a bit, was also intelligence. But he basically starts Pergamon with Paul. And they rename the new venture company after a coin from ancient Greek city, Pergamon Press. The coin that they're talking about features Athena, the goddess of wisdom, and it was basically used as their logo to represent money and wisdom. So to me, it's interesting that they would even pick Pergamon, and they would pick something like that. And I believe even when we did the Gilgo thing, Pergamon itself was pinging, was it A&W root beer?
Yes.
And
that was with the Gilgo series.
Yeah. And so it just seems an odd name to choose, in my opinion. And then what's really interesting is that, like, the Pergamon altar that was in Greece is now in Germany. So you almost wonder, like, he was there in Berlin, he was doing all the negotiations, and then he names it Pergamon. It seems very, very odd. So, yeah. And that's all I have for Pergamon.
All right, and then I go into my numbers. Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I got Pergamon Press 598, 996, and 166. It's the Hebrew, English, and simple. With the Jewish gematria, I did get the number of man, manifestation of God, August, connect the dots, myrrh, like the incense, God of the beast, the false prophet, the mugshot. I just included that because it's just like, you know, it's like at some point, like, it's like, where does Trump all fit into this too?
And he does.
Yeah, because of, like, both of them. I mean, even with Murdoch. You know what I'm saying? And it's like the mugshot. Yeah. It's like that is the mugshot was a thing recently.
It's true. Yeah.
Hannity, another Fox News, United Nation, Assassin's Creed, and then for the English and simple, you do get Twin Towers, which is interesting because, like, Trump was pretty involved with that. You know, like for New York, he was like pretty much on the news stations like right away talking about it. He sent people down there to help clean up. Very vocal, very Mr. 9/11. Tetragrammaton, I thought was interesting to mention. Travis Scott, John Benet Ramsey, Transformers, Praying Mantis, Eternal Darkness, and Rudolf Steiner. Yeah.
Interesting.
Then I did Pergamon by itself real quick, 273, 534, and 89. The Jewish gematria that I thought was interesting was King Charles, Mother, Oranges, Angel of Light, Democrat, Red Door, Talbot, and Initiate. The English and simple, you got August again. You and I, Argentina, Mr. Poole, Osiris, Look Here, Summer, Virginia, Yaldabaoth, King James, Alexandria, Fallen Angel, The Beehive, Da Vinci Code, Delta Force, Seraphim, End Times, and Mystic, and Gift of God.
Interesting.
Yeah, Press itself, which I did find interesting when I ran the numbers on that. You get 325,462, but it's as simple as 77. Yeah, I find that interesting a little bit, especially like Crowley had 777.
Well, you know what's in the, before you go any further, Pergamon is mentioned as the Satan's throne in Revelation, I believe, chapter 12, verse 13, and he offered 13,000 for the company that he would later turn into Brumo. I thought that was very odd.
Yeah. All right, and then on press, I'll read a few of these things off, and then I'll actually start like reading some of my notes. Press, yeah. For the Jewish Demantia, Stolen, Marduk, Francis Bacon, Green Comet, the Clipoth, which is kind of like the reverse tree. It's supposed to be like, well, demonic or whatever, or considered like shells or whatever. It's hard to explain. Female orgasm, Goldstein. Then the English in simple, Christ, Samantha, Swift, Alyssa, Caroline, Molly, Stars. Believe it or not, something that I did find interesting with that is that there was like a lot of female names that I'm not even going to read off. But like that was something that was like, it seems to be like very feminine names were coming up. You know, I normally don't notice the difference that much to ever like, you know, to point that out before. USSR, Netsock. I found that interesting because like you did say something about, you say something about Venus before? Or
Aphrodite. I'm not Aphrodite. Athena,
yeah. I mean, it's still a feminine god. I could possibly see her on Netsock, even though, like, people probably argue with me. I'd probably actually see her more on Gabora because, like, I mean, she was, like, warlike. She just wasn't doing the killing. You know, she was, like, planning them. You know.
Well, she got other people to do it.
Yeah. Sometimes I even look at that and wondered, like, if her and Aries were, like, well, Scorpio and Aries, really.
Yeah.
And, like, kind of, like, was just, like, the feminine aspect of that energy, and Aries is the male aspect of that energy. Something along those lines. It also matches Walking, Caduceus, and Yadhe Vadhe, and Jester, and Hexagram, too. Don't leave that out.
There's some interesting.
And Court. Okay. Court. Don't want to forget that one because of Jester and Court. I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah, and there was the guy and the guy's name Virgil from The Walking Dead came up, and there was Walking in here before. I was like, included that. All right, but now I'm up to I'll get into Paul Rosebud, or however you even say his name, and that would be right here. That's him with Samuel Goldsmith, who I will get into eventually myself. All right, Paul Rosebud, again, if I'm even saying it right, was a metallurgist and a scientific advisor for Springer Verlag in Germany before and during World War II. He continued in science publishing after the war with Pergamon Press in Oxford, England. In 1986, Arnold Cramish revealed the undercover work of Rosebud for the British during the war in the book The Griffin. Before the outbreak of war, Rosebud hurried into print Otto Hahn's work on nuclear fission in a German science journal in January of 1939. Rosebud realized the vast destructive potential of what Hahn, Strassmann, and Meitner, if I'm saying that correct, had discovered, and he knew that the research had been done in Germany. He wanted the rest of the world to know the significance of the work at least as soon as the Nazi planners did. By rushing into print with Hahn's manuscript, he was able to alert the world community of physicists. Sometimes, like, I mean, isn't that like kind of like a double-edged sword, though, in itself? Not saying that you should keep it, I guess, private, but it's just like now you're just handing it to more people that could be potential assholes about it.
Exactly. You're putting the recipe out there. You're putting the recipe out there, right?
Yo, it's funny, like, and real quick, and like this is, I guess, like a perfect example. There was somebody that I came across. I don't even know how I came across it. I think I was like trying to see about like something to do with spirit boxes, and somehow like going from one click to the next, I ended up on some guy's YouTube channel who was like trying to. He was more of like somebody who was just into tech, and just randomly, I guess, like maybe I don't know, just thought it was funny or interesting. Kind of just like wanted to shit on, I guess, on a ghost hunter and covered his spirit box and pointed out somebody that they think specifically like designed it probably like it's not right, and that they actually think that when they use it and show their evidence, he's like, this is how I actually think he's faking his evidence, and was like showing you how like you could even like fake like the sound of like voices coming in and out of the ghost box. And I'm like, this shit looks, I mean, to me, I was like, if I heard this on Ghost Adventures, well, Ghost Adventures, I'd question it anyway. But, but like, if I heard it somewhere else, I'd be like, yo, that sounded pretty fucking legit. And I'm like, you know, you showed everybody how well and easy to do this.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're probably actually going to get people who are going to use this now.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I was just like,
it was like promotion for it. What he was trying to do was the opposite.
Because I was even thinking, not for me, but I was like, yo, I guarantee you, there's people that I know, if they sent this to them, they'd probably be tempted. Especially when you're like trying to chase shit and make money, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I just wanted to throw that in. Yeah, I just was like, you know, as I was reading like the information about the guy and read that, I was like, I get it. Like he was trying to be like a whistleblower, I guess, but I was like, I don't know if it really worked out that well.
I think you have to play it out all the way out, 20 paces out, and see. I know you think you're doing good, but
yeah, I mean, I'm sure I've made that mistake with my own show. Otto Hahn was a German chemist who was a pioneer in the fields of radioactivity and radiochemistry. He was referred to as the father of nuclear chemistry and the father of nuclear fission. Hahn and Lise Meitner discovered radioactive isotopes of radium, thorium, protactinium, and uranium. He also discovered the phenomena of atomic recoil and nuclear isomerism. I'm screwing that up. And pioneered rubidium, strontium. Then in 1938, Hahn and Lise and Fritz Strassmann discovered nuclear fission, for which Hahn received the 1944 Nobel Prize for Chemistry. Nuclear fission was the basis for nuclear reactors and nuclear weapons. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I thought it was interesting to mention that these people are nuclear weapons. A graduate of the University of Marburg, which awarded him a doctorate in 1901, and Hahn studied under Sir William Ramsay.
The William Ramsay?
I even highlighted that so I remember to like laugh at it. At University College London and at McGill University in Montreal under Ernest Rutherford. And just because I said that doesn't mean I'm saying anything about William Ramsay's name. I just thought it was funny. I was like, I should cover this guy if there's anything interesting about it.
I know.
Just to see if William Ramsay is like, what the fuck is that? What's he saying in that show?
What is he doing? Yeah.
And I'll name it like, who is the real William Ramsay? So when he sees it pop up, he'll be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Watch him be related.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, no, he's fucking shitting on me next now? What did I do?
Well, if anything, he's owed royalties because he discovered freaking.
Like, well, if it does good, maybe I should retweet it. Maybe I should drop it myself. No. All right, I graduated. Yeah, right. I said with William Ramsay. Though his work at Springer Verlag, Rosebud knew much of the scientific community in Germany, and as a presumed Nazi, he had sources of vital intelligence relating to weaponry. In 1938, he had his Jewish wife, Hilde, and if I'm saying that right, or Hild, and their only daughter, Angela, sent to the UK to keep them safe from Nazi harassment. Rosebud was also invited to stay in the UK, but he decided to keep working in Germany to undermine the Nazi regime. Now, I mean, supposedly, I think they were saying that he was like kind of undercover in the Nazis. I think that's what they're saying with this guy.
Right.
In addition to his own, Rosebud helped a number of other families flee the Nazis, including that of the well-known Jewish physicist Lise Meitner, who, again, just so happens to help with, I think, was he one of the people with nuclear, or maybe it wasn't him.
I think so. Yeah. I think he was. Hold on.
Because there was like, I think 2 people involved with.
Yes, it was Otto Hahn, and it was Lise Meitner and Fritz Strassmann that discovered nuclear fission and got the Nobel.
Nice.
Or Hahn got the Nobel for it.
So, yeah. He saved the guy who helped make nukes. Good for him. Or at
is
least,
that why,
or at least,
was he sent in to go get him specifically?
or it's like does the nukes not even exist, and it's like we just came up with a theatrical way to make the fucking people believe that they exist, like, because like some people do even question if those things exist, and sometimes I do. I hate to say it. I know that might sound ignorant, but sometimes I do wonder, like, if like, I mean, I don't. I would like to know what kind of fucking cameras they were using that didn't get blown away by the nuclear blast when or the atomic bomb when they dropped it. Like, I need that camera.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah,
that's
it's just weird to me. It's just weird to me. I don't understand. Fucking, the house is blowing in fucking smithereens and the camera's fucking still.
It was made out of the same phone company that the moon called the president.
Oh, God. No. They just, you know what they did? They just painted it blue. And now it can withstand direct energy weapons. We're good.
Not that one. Not that one.
Okay, enough about that. All right, okay. Sorry. Oh, but where was I? Yeah, to keep him safe from Nazi harassment, including he was assisted in his work saving Jews by the fact that he was run by a British agent, Frank Foley, and the M16, MI6 station chief in Berlin. Eric Welsh and presumably also Foley were Rosebud's contacts in SIS and MI6. After the war, Rosebud took up residence in England. He worked for Butterworth Springer, a company set up in response to a scientific advisory board that included Alfred Egerton, Charles Galton Darwin, who I think you mentioned before, right? Mm-hmm. Edward Salisbury, and Alexander Fleming. When the Butterworth Company decided to pull out of the English-German liaison, Robert Maxwell acquired 75%, while 25% rested with Rosebud. How do you say his name? The company name was changed to Pergamon Press. The partners cooperated in establishing new academic journals until 1956. After a disagreement, Rosebud left. Maxwell said Rosebud was an outstanding editor of the European type from whom I learned some of the trade in the early days. So at least they're trying to sound nice.
They departed on good terms, maybe.
I'm sure they both probably made enough money.
Well, he knew about nuclear fission, so he might need him later.
Yeah. Real quick, I did want to touch on those names that I kind of highlighted before. Sir Alfred Charles Glenn Egerton was a British alchemist. After enlisting in the Coldstream Guards, he was seconded to the Department of Explosive Supply and did research into munitions. After the war, he studied the vapor pressure of metals before his interest turned to combustion. He pioneered the use of liquid methane as a fuel. I found that pretty interesting. He was born in, I don't even know how to say this. He was born in Wales. And he was the fourth son of Colonel Sir Alfred Mordaunt Egerton, an officer of the Rifle Brigade and the Royal Horse Guards, and comptroller to the Duke of Connaught and Strathern, and his wife, the Honorable Mary Georgina Ormsby Gore, the oldest daughter of William Ormsby Gore, second Baron Harlech. I mean, just the names, and it sounds just like they were important. Who knows if they were or not? But you're a comptroller. I mean, that's kind of like somebody who's handling the money.
Yeah.
Important
money, not just any money.
And this guy also was learned from Sir William Ramsay. So
he was a big dude back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Real quick, with Sir Charles Galton Darwin, he was an English physicist who served as a director of the National Physical Laboratory, NPL, during the Second World War. He was the son of the mathematician George Howard Darwin and a grandson of Charles Darwin, becoming the first Tate Professor of Natural Philosophy at the University of Edinburgh in 1924. He was working on quantum optics, and magneto-optics effects. I don't even know what the fuck that even means. Joe, what is magneto-optic effects?
I wonder if that has to do with the eye.
Yeah, that's really weird. Like sucking the light out of your eyeballs.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, magnets will bend light, and like, I mean, it does come out of your eyes. What if you were to actually, like, literally bend the light that was even? Oh, that's fucking weird.
Maybe that's why there's no blood in your eyes, because of the metal, the iron. It would cause a change. The photons are sorry.
He was the first in 1928 to calculate the fine structure of the hydrogen atom under Paul Dirac's theory of the electron. He was assisted at the university by Dr. Robert Schlapp, if that means anything to anyone. Real quick, Darwin asked fellow physicist Max Born if he would consider becoming his successor, a Tate professor, an offer that Born promptly accepted. He then resigned his post, and he started he became the director of the National Physical Laboratory on approach of war in 1938. He served in the role into the post-war period, unafraid to seek improved laboratory performance through reorganization, but spending much of the war years working on the Manhattan Project, coordinating the American, British, and Canadian efforts. Darwin was appointed KBE in 1942, and the KBE is the most excellent order of the British Empire, and it is a British order of chivalry, rewarding contributions to the arts and sciences, work with the charitable and welfare organizations, and public service outside the civil service. It was established by King George V and comprises 5 classes across both civil and military divisions, the most senior 2 of which make the recipient either a knight, if he's a male, or a dame, if a female. That was a little interesting. Mm-hmm. Sir Edward James Salisbury was an English botanist. I had to bring him up as soon as I saw the botany. Yeah. That just seems like a common thing with some Nazis. And ecologist. Graduated in botany from University College, London, 1905. 1913, he obtained a, I don't know what this is, maybe you do know, it's a D.Sc. A DSc. I don't know what that means. With a thesis on fossil seeds, and was appointed as senior lecturer at East London College. He was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society on March 15th, 1933, and won the Society's Royal Medal in 1945 for his notable contributions to plant ecology and to the study of the British flora. In 1936, he was awarded the Veitch, if I'm saying that correctly, Memorial Medal of the Royal Horticultural Society in acknowledgement of his book, The Living Garden, that was done in 1935, which was supposedly very popular. He received the Commander of the Order of British Empire, and in 1946, he was knighted.
I think the DSc, I think that's Doctorate of Science.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I figured ask you.
Everybody calls it something different in different countries.
Well, that was the whole thing, too. I was like, I would have to even specify over there. I was like, I'll just ask you when I read it. Sir Alexander Fleming was a Scottish physician and microbiologist, best known for discovering the world's first broadly effective antibiotic substance.
I got it wrong. I said he was vaccine. I confused him with Edward Jenner. So he was the penicillin guy. Sorry, my bad. My correction. Thank you.
Which he named penicillin. For this discovery, he shared the Nobel Prize in Physiology and or Medicine in 1945 with Howard Florey and Ernst Boris Chain. He also discovered the enzyme lysozyme from his nasal discharge in 1922. And along with it, bacterium he named Micrococcus.
Micrococcus.
Lysodicticus and Micrococcus luteris. I don't even know what the hell these things are, but he found these things. Fleming was knighted for his scientific achievements in 1944. Another knighted person. In 1999, he was named in Time Magazine's list of the 100 most important people of the 20th century. In 2022, he was chosen in the BBC's television poll for determining the 100 greatest Britons. And in 2009, he was also voted third greatest Scot in an opinion poll conducted by SCTV, behind only Robert Burns and William Wallace. But I mean, so these people too, I mean, to me, they sound, you got important people rolling with you.
So if you think about it, Paul and Robert Maxwell are rubbing elbows with these people. And these are intelligence people. Like, I can't overemphasize.
Yeah, you know what that makes me think about? Who was that guy, that weirdo that was supposedly diddling kids and was knighted too? They had that crazy hair too sometimes. Yeah, he had that show at the music that bands that would play on it. Top Pops or some shit like that.
Yes.
I can't remember his name. Jimmy Savile.
Jimmy Savile.
Jimmy Savile. It's like, he got knighted too. How do you know that guy wasn't fucking...
Yeah.
This shit too, you know?
Yeah. Obviously, they're
maybe he was intelligent, even though he played like a fool.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
This is the best. That seems the best way to make people really blinded by who you truly are. Is just fucking make them laugh constantly. You'll just consider him stupid and never think twice about him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably how he was even getting away with the sick shit that he eventually got caught for doing. Playing a fool.
Yeah.
Nobody would think anything about it.
I was just joking. It was just in jest.
Yeah. Oh, he's too fucking dumb to think about that.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into the person up on the page, finally, that I did mention in the top, Samuel Goldsmith. He was Samuel Abraham Goldsmith, was a Dutch-American physicist famous for jointly proposing the concept of electron spin with George Eugene Uhlenbeck in 1925. Goldsmith studied physics at the University of Leiden under Paul Ehrenfest, where he obtained his PhD in 1927. During World War II, he worked at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology as a scientific head of Alsos mission. He successfully reached a German group of nuclear physicists around Werner Heisenberg and Otto Hahn at these names, Heichingen, in advance of French physicist Yves Rocard. He was also, Alsos was also part of the Manhattan Project as well, and was designed to assess, Alsos was also designed to assess the progress of the Nazi atomic bomb project.
Well, I think Alsos' mission was an intelligence op, and that's when they were trying to look to see how far advanced the Nazi scientists were. This might have been the precursor to picking teams or draft recruitment.
Yeah.
For Operation Paperclip. They had a dossier on each one of them. I'm assuming. Why would you?
All right, and I guess we'll probably just leave it there because the other stuff that I do have will probably run on for about another 20 to 30 minutes. It is going to be kind of like a weird cycle of companies that start popping up that I had mentioned again. That was commonalities amongst shady companies or even secret societies. You know, like when me and Lux were covering in first year season. The first year they were out, we covered like a lot of secret societies, Randa Nordica, a bunch of things that we got very big into, like the business aspect and checking who owned these places, the registered agents and all this stuff. And you're going to see the same exact ones that popped up for secret societies, Randa Nordica, shady stuff. Same ones again. It's just very, very weird. But it's going to take some time, especially to like kind of show like the whole circle and show all the slides. So that one, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait till part 2. Yeah. And Lisa has some other stuff up her sleeve as well. So
yes, exactly.
Part 2 will definitely be probably about another whole hour and 15 hours worth. So it'll be a whole other episode. The crazy thing is that I swear, really swear to God, I'm almost. You did come up with this idea before the whole shit with these papers.
Yes, no, absolutely. Yeah. It was, I believe.
Actually, you could probably check the data when you shared the document with me.
It's true. I believe it was. I will tell. I think we were working on something, and I mentioned I'm working on an article I just came across. I think I'm going to share it as a Twitter post.
Oh yes, and I was like, no, that sounds interesting.
And you said, what is it about? And so I told you, and you were like, no, we should totally do an episode on that. And of course, in my head, I'm like, is it really relevant? I mean, I literally thought that. Is it even relevant? And then now with this whole Epstein thing.
Once I stopped with the numbers, because I did that first just to get it out of the way. Once I started like kind of getting into it, I was like, oh. That's when I started with the screenshots. I was like, this was from, the Moose Lodge. It was just really weird.
Right.
And then I was like, oh no, this is interesting. So we do have we got some bangers for the next one. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Again, this is going to drop as an extra show. It's Friday. I'm going to try, if I can't get it dropped for tomorrow, definitely by Sunday. And hopefully we'll be recording part 2 next week, and that will just drop, Saturday or Sunday as well. And to be totally honest with you, because of this being in, a topic, and honestly, I do want to try to at least expose a little bit. No, I hate using expose. Maybe shine a light more on like what is really going on over here. Right. With this name that's not really being talked about because it's just automatically associated with something else.
Right.
It's like, this is a good time to maybe put out the name, but with something of some depth and rabbit hole shit to it that you can prove and not be like, I just think.
And I think that's what the conversation we had is that everybody talks about how Robert Maxwell bad, but nobody says why.
Yeah, that too. Yes.
Actually show why. You may say, oh well, he's Ghislaine's dad, or because whatever. No. But I think this proves the sinisterness in an industry that everybody relies on.
Yeah. When I, like you said, when I had looked at, really kind of started reading the article and then started looking into like what you were saying, I was like, this is pretty screwed up. Because like even I think the thing that seemed weird to me, and like you're seeing it here, is that even when I was recording MK Ultra with Thrash, it's just you started to see how many like Nazi scientists or people that were associated with that were actually known for coming up with a lot of shit too. Right. And it just, I don't know, it just seemed like really, is there like a blur here?
Well, my whole thing is, why is intelligence even involved in science? And now you're telling me that science is being dictated by publishing companies that were started by intelligence? Like, yeah.
Something shady. Mm-hmm. But thank you very much. I really, like I said, I truly enjoyed looking into this topic. It really blew me away to even see, that again, like to even see publishing companies actually that we're going to be talking about that. I was like, what the fuck? Me and Lux were talking about this 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just like something's got to be up with these companies that are constantly coming up associated with like just weird shit. Yeah. It's like they always come up like down some like one of those rabbit holes that you just kind of brush upon but don't go too deep into. It's like it's constantly these names when it comes up with fishy shit.
It's true.
So yeah, that's enough. I'm done running my mouth. Again, thank you, Lisa. I had a really good time doing this. It was an awesome idea for a topic regardless of the times. I thought it was really interesting to begin with. So thank you, and until the next one, everybody be well. Later.